Good morning, welcome back to my channel, Home Life with Rebecca. So I just wanted to jump on here real quick. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I've been having some health issues that I need to address. I have not been to the doctor in quite a while, but I think I'm going to find a new doctor because the last time I went, I just felt like I was a number, and he ordered all these blood tests and sent me on my way. And then the blood test came back totally fine, except that my B12 was really low. So he had me going in doing B12 injections, which I don't know, almost felt like they made me more tired. He didn't really address my hand issues. So I think it's time for a second opinion, a new doctor. I'm on Medicaid, so sometimes that makes it a little bit tricky to find good providers, especially I feel for adult care. He did refer me to a hand doctor, and that guy was okay. They did x-rays, came back that the arthritis is called thumb arthritis. Basically, all of this joint is that of an 80-year-old woman. That's how he described it. He doesn't know why it's so bad in my case, but he told me that physical therapy at this point would just make it worse because I'm developing bone spurs, and that's why I have the pain when they start to rub together. So he said that I can do cortisone shots, which would relieve that pain, but ultimately I'm probably going to need surgery where they remove that part and I guess put fake, kind of like when you get like a hip or a knee replacement. And he said that it's pretty invasive surgery that, it'd be up to me. I could either do both at one time or do one, let it heal, do the physical therapy for that after it's healing, and then do the other hand. So I'm really not a fan of having surgery. I've had 7 surgeries already. Granted, they were all C-sections and a hysterectomy, but I don't like the feeling of being down and out. I'm a very kind of a type A personality. I like to have my house a certain way and things to look a certain way, and I know that a lot of that is I'm just gonna have to let go and have my kids really help me out if I do end up having surgery. And then there's also the fact that my husband, who has his own health issues, and he's going to be needing more surgery. I just feel like his problems are worse. Not that they're worse, but that he needs to get it taken care of first. So I went ahead and I got the cortisone shots back in, when was it? September, I think. It was right around the time that I got my haircut. I can't remember. And that I had both hands done at once. That was the worst pain. That was worse than my C-sections. It was worse than when my braces got taken off. I have very, very sensitive teeth. And so when they were cleaning my teeth after the braces were removed, I thought that was worse than the C-section pain. The cortisone shots themselves weren't bad, except for when he got to my right hand, I must have tensed, and so he had to do it twice. And by the time, because I remember leaving the doctor's office and thinking, okay, that hurt, but it wasn't, terrible. I went and got my hair cut, and as she was cutting my hair, my hands started to feel like they were on fire. And by the time I got home, I could barely I couldn't do anything. I couldn't text my husband for help. I couldn't open the bottle of Motrin or Tylenol. I could not. It was so bad. I just scrunched myself into a ball, and I thought, I understand why you hear those weird stories where people cut off their own limbs because they can't take the pain anymore. That was going through my head. Not that I was going to cut off my hands, but I could see why, because it was agony for 3 hours. I was just felt like I was going to die, and I couldn't even use my cell phone to call my husband and say I need help. I couldn't. The kids were at school. He was at work. I was I could do nothing. It was horrible. And he did warn me that sometimes the cortisone shots will make it worse for a little while before it starts to feel better. So after a day of that, like it took almost 24 hours. I mean, it was intense pain for around 3 hours, but about 24 hours before I started to notice the pain leveling out. And then over the next couple of days and weeks, the cortisone shots helped tremendously. Like I was not having the pain like I usually have. I was able to hold things, open things, wash dishes, comb my hair, do yoga, like all those things were good. But just in the last month or so, it's completely worn off and they almost feel worse than they did before. And I'm not sure if it's just because it's advancing or if the cortisone shots made it worse. I don't know. I haven't researched much. I know my sister was advising me against it. She said they're not good for you, while like my dad and my mom and other people were like, no, get them if it helps. I'm tempted to go and get it again, but I'm scared of that pain. I think if I do, I'm only going to do one hand. My right thumb is probably 5 times worse than my left because it's my dominant hand. Well, what's happened is over these last few months that it's gotten worse, I think I'm overcompensating with my joint right here, and I've developed tennis elbow. I have self-diagnosed myself, so I could totally be wrong, but all the symptoms point to tennis elbow. So not only is my hand not working right, my arm is not working right, and I'm in pain all the time. Nothing works. Motrin doesn't work. Tylenol doesn't work. Icing it doesn't work. I feel like nothing works, and I'm just hurting. Like, it's so weird. Like, I'll like do like the simplest things, like try to tie my shoe, and it'll feel like my thumb's getting dislocated, or I'll just move my hand like to wave and it'll feel like my thumb is getting dislocated. And then I'll have days where it's not so bad. So I don't know. I just feel like I need to get a new primary care doctor and maybe get a second opinion to see if there's anything that I can do. Because this last doctor, I was like, is there not like arthritis medicine? Is there like not anything else before we get to surgery? Because I feel like surgery should really be the last resort. But he said there was nothing, and I just thought that was kind of strange. So I'm on a quest to find a new doctor. And with that being said, my health is not great. So my mom just got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and it runs on both sides of my family. And I didn't have a healthy relationship with food my whole entire life. And my parents didn't have a healthy relationship with food. My sister didn't. Like, my whole family did not have a healthy relationship with food. And so I grew up, and this is not to shame my parents or my sister or anybody, but because it's probably how they grew up, they did the best that they could do. Growing up for me was my parents were always on a diet. And so there was always like nothing to eat in our house. It was like rice cakes and just raisin bran with non-fat milk that tastes like water. It was just these weird yogurts, and I don't know. Like, my mom would buy like frozen burritos and the yogurts with the fruit on the bottom, which I hated, but my sister liked. And then my sister would like make those frozen burritos and put like Kraft cheese over the top and melt them. I'm like, I like the frozen burritos now, but I can't do the cheese on them. And so I just felt like there was never any good food in the house. And I ate a lot of cereal with non-fat milk. Like, that would be my dinner a lot of nights. My mom, especially as me and my sister got older, and we're 6 years apart, 5.5. And my dad, worked long hours and out of town, and we always had like rehearsals and appointments. And my mom was a, taxi cab driver, kind of like I am right now. She did not really cook dinner too often. And like I said, towards our teenage years, I don't remember sitting down together ever having dinner. It was a lot of fast food and then diet food at home because they were always on a diet. And I would go to my grandma's house down the street, and she always had junk food. Like, she had Twinkies and cookies and greasy chips and bologna sandwiches, which to this day I cannot eat. bologna sandwiches. I only liked them when my grandma made them. I don't know why, but yeah, they leave like a weird taste in my mouth. But she always had like fun food. And so I think I would go there and I would like binge on this junk food, or she would call us over for like breakfast on Saturday mornings, and it was like greasy eggs and bacon and chorizo. I can't ever say that word, which I didn't like, or like sausage, and just not good food for you. And then, you know, I'd go back home and it was, you could eat cardboard basically. So, and then my mom would like on and off again diet. She never really had like a weight problem to say. She just, would gain 10 pounds, lose the same 10 pounds, and she's still the same way. It's the same 10 pounds. My dad, on the other hand, was very fixated on the scale, like, and again, it's not to shame my dad. I love my dad. He's a great father. Almost said he was, but he's still here with us. He was a great dad, and he just had a personality where when he was going to do something, it was all or nothing. So like his work would continually have like contests, like whoever lost the most weight like would win $500 or $100. And my dad would win them every single time, but he would basically starve himself. He would live off of Slim Fast. Do you remember those? That was before the cans. It was the powder, and it was disgusting. You could never mix it right. Or like carrot sticks, like he just wouldn't eat. And he would just drop all this weight really fast. Or he would do these weird cleansing diets where he would drink like water with cayenne pepper, maple syrup, and lemon juice. And it was like, he tried to get me to do it one time, and I think I made it through one glass, and my mom was like, no, like I do not need her to have explosive diarrhea at school. Because basically I think that's what it did, because it cleansed your system out. But I always wondered, was he really trying to cleanse his system, or he just wanted to, win or lose weight really fast? And honestly, and I know he watches this, so he'll probably say something, but I think it was to win and to just lose weight really fast. Because he would be so proud, like when he would lose 20 pounds in a month. And so growing up, like I thought that was the way to do things. And over time, I had a really distorted body image, and it started back when I was, I don't know, first grade. I always felt like I was chubby, even at that age. Like I would compare myself to other kids. I had a friend, and she was able to wear jeans with buttons, and I couldn't. And I always thought it was because I was fat. Well, it turns out, and this is, fast forward to just 2 years ago, those feelings of when I felt I was fat and not being able to wear jeans with buttons was nothing to do with my weight, because I could have bought pants that, fit with buttons, and it still would have been comfortable. It didn't matter if they fit, were too big, too small. It was a sensory thing is what it was. It was, I didn't like the way it felt when I sat down and the button would touch my skin. So in my head, I thought it was because it was digging into my skin because I had rolls of fat. And that's presented itself very early, but in reality, I now know it was a sensory thing. Now, I do wear jeans from time to time, but I still struggle with jeans. So I will wear them, but only for a few hours, and I have to take them off. So I still have very high sensory issues, and a couple of my kiddos have the same problem. So I just remember like feeling so jealous of friends that could wear jeans, because in my head, jeans equaled skinny. Like you couldn't wear those unless you were thin. And so very early on, I had a very distorted body image. And then probably 8th grade, I got the flu really bad. And I was in a play called Jesus Christ Superstar. And so I was leaving school early every day to get to the rehearsals for this play. And I didn't have like a major part. I was just part of the cast, like the background. But I liked singing and I liked music, and it was cool to be in this play I was the youngest cast member, and I just felt like I was so cool being in this play surrounded by all these college boys and college girls, and because it was at a college. Sorry. And so I was leaving school early every day. I was doing homework backstage, and I had a lot of Harvard classes, And I think when I got the flu and I was overly exhausted, I lost probably 10 pounds in 2 weeks, like really fast. And because my appetite was, it had shrunk when I started to heal again, I was afraid to eat. Like I didn't want to gain that weight back. And I've heard this from other people that have watched those after school specials that are meant to help you. Because this is where I really feel like the eating disorder kind of like clenched itself, like became firm, so to say, in my brain that this is what I need to do. I mean, it was already there, it was growing, but I had lost the weight. I was starting to get better. I was afraid to eat and put the weight back on. And I remember watching some after school special of a girl who had anorexia and bulimia. And it was the bulimia that caught my attention because I liked food. And because there was no good food in our house, I would return to my grandma's house. And then my teenage years, like I would, babysit or whatever and get cash and I would spend it on junk food. And so I was like, well, here's a way to eat whatever I want to and not have to worry about gaining weight, because then you can get rid of it. And horrible, horrible, horrible. But I remember like thinking, I just won't take it as far as the girl in the movie. Sorry, the sun was, the mini blinds were on my face. So that's what I did. And when I was watching that, I was eating some of the Raisin Bran with the non-fat milk. And so I'm like, let me see if I can do this, because nobody likes to throw up. Like I don't like to feel sick. So I won't get into detail, but it actually was very easy to do. And it's a totally different feeling than when you're sick and throwing up. Like there's no nausea. So anyway, long story short, this became my go-to crutch. This became my addiction. Food became my addiction. Getting rid of it became a high. And pretty soon over the years, like I could not function without doing that. And I didn't necessarily get really thin where my parents were like, something's going on. There was a period of time where my mom suspected I was doing it, because she would ask and I was like, no. And then she would, okay, like, I believe you. She had no reason not to believe me. I don't remember what made her suspect it. I don't know if she heard me once, maybe. I'm not sure. And then I would go a couple months where I wouldn't do it. Like I would feel okay. And then something would happen where I was very socially awkward as a teenager. I was a flirt. Like my maiden name was Burton. And so in high school, people would call me Flirt and Burton. So I was a flirt, but I never had a boyfriend. Like, because I was so kind of like march to the beat of my own drum, which looking back, like, good. I'm glad I didn't, didn't want to be like everybody else. But secretly, I think deep down I did, because I used food as a way to control my thoughts and my weight, and everything became about how much I weighed. It was terrible. I felt like I was just locked in jail all the time. So I never got really skinny. My mom never really asked questions except that one time, but I never had a boyfriend. And I think part of the reason why I didn't want a relationship is because when I would get asked out on dates, I was afraid to go on the dates because they usually involved going out to dinner, and I couldn't sit through a whole dinner without having to use the bathroom. And I didn't want to look weird if I was gone too long. So it just became this whole ugly thing. So fast forward through high school, I graduated, finally met a boy that my first boyfriend, like my first real boyfriend, I say real boyfriend, who I confided in about my problems with, and he seemed very supporting at the time. And we ended up getting married way too young. And the bulimia intensified after I got married because I got comfortable and I started to gain a lot of weight. And I ballooned up to, 180 pounds. I'm only 5'6", so the 180 pounds does not look good on my frame. And so I started to throw out my food again. So much so that he caught on to what I was doing, and he would get really mad at me for it. Like, he became unsupportive. Like, how can you do that? You're so disgusting. Like, it was bad. And I felt like I had nobody. And so I started to, because he could hear me, I would do it into trash bags and then take it out secretly. And it was just yuck. It was bad. Yeah, the light's back again. Oh, you guys are just gonna have to deal with lines on my face because I don't know where else to sit. And then I discovered Diet Fuel, which they had the ephedra, is that what it's called? Back when it was legal, in these pills. So you could take 3 a day and it would control your appetite. And so I discovered these pills. I don't remember who gave them to me, but oh my gosh, they worked. It was like I had no appetite. And so I took them all the time. I started to lose weight. I started to walk at like 2 miles a day, and I was feeling good. But then they stopped working. And so to make them work, I had to take more and more and more to, I'm not even joking, I got up to 13, sometimes 16 pills a day. I was going through bottles like water of these pills. I don't know how I didn't have a heart attack, because that's why they ended up banning this ephedra like in diet pills, because people were like killing over from heart attacks. God was really watching out for me, but I was totally addicted to them. I would sweat and get the shakes if I didn't have them in my system. Like if I ran out and I couldn't get to the store, or it would be my, I'd be at work, and it was horrible. So I had just replaced one addiction for another. So I wasn't throwing up my food or starving myself, because I would have bouts of, they were just ugly cycles. I would starve myself, and then I would get so hungry after a week that I would binge and then start throwing up my food. Like everything I ate, it didn't matter what it was. It could be an apple. I was going to get rid of it. I wanted no calories in my body. Back to starving myself, where I would just live off of a Diet Coke or carrot sticks or one icy a day. Then binging, throwing up. It was this never-ending cycle. But then I found the diet pills. So the diet pills replaced all of that. And so I really had to, by this time I was divorced, and I was living with my 2 oldest kids' father, and I got off the pills. I don't even remember what happened to make me decide to get off of them, but it was like, I don't know, because I've never done drugs, but I had withdrawals. Like it was bad. Like I felt sick for like a week or so. But as soon as the pills were out of my system, I also had a lot of stress in my life at that time. The other stuff came back. I starved, binged, purged, starved, binge, purged. And then I discovered exercise. The kid's father was a runner, and so he taught me I could never run because I could never breathe right. I had asthma as a kid. And so he taught me how to breathe properly to run. And so I started to do it, and I built myself up to, I could jog 7-8 miles without stopping. And then I became fixated on that, on exercise. So I wasn't throwing up my food, but I was running on hardly any calories. And I got really, really thin. I got so thin, my hair started to fall out. I think I dropped down to like 110, 115, which doesn't seem bad, but again, not ideal for my body weight. My body frame is, I'm not small bone, but I'm not like, like huge. Like, so like 140, between 140 and 150 look good on me. That's where my body feels the most comfortable, where I don't, because when I get below 140, like you would think the 130s is healthy, but I don't know, like I start to look sick. I don't know how to explain it. Like my face looks like that, and it's just not pretty. And then when I get above like 160, 170, then I start to feel not good in my skin, which is where I am now. I don't know how much I weigh, because I will not I don't own a scale, so I don't get on it, because I don't want to go back to basing stuff on a number. But so I've had all these patterns, right? Never had a healthy relationship with food. I did in my 40s check myself into an eating disorder clinic. Finally, it was outpatient, so I was able to come home, and that helped so much. Like, I learned so much about food and my relationship with food, and I learned that I don't need to count calories, I don't need to starve myself, I don't need to throw up my food, I don't need to do any of that stuff. It's just all about portion control. I learned that I could eat a Hot Pocket for lunch and pair it with an apple, and that was okay. And to just move my body throughout the day. That exercise was good, and like, it didn't have to be this huge deal. So it was really good. And of course, like with any addict, because food is an addiction, I fall off the wagon, so to speak, but pick myself back up again. And so here we are today. Now, in the last 2 years, I've been diagnosed with ADHD. And because through my 20s and up, I tried to get help for the eating disorder, and they would just diagnose me as anxiety and depression, and they put me on all these antidepressants, which just made it horrible. It made it worse. It made me a zombie. It made me actually suicidal. My thoughts didn't feel like my own. None of it worked. Well, I was misdiagnosed. Like, all this time I had ADHD and some OCD tendencies, which would explain a lot of the eating disorder behaviors and patterns. So when I got put on the Adderall, it controlled those thoughts, and it was like whoosh. It was like my brain all of a sudden was able to slow down. I was able to think clearly. And it was like all of a sudden I didn't need to base anything off of food. Plus, the Adderall is an appetite suppressant. So knowing that, they were like really monitoring me, because they're like, okay, if you start dropping weight, or like we think you're using it to lose weight, they were going to take me off of it. And so because it did so much for my mental health part of it, like just being able to focus and get tasks done and think clearly and shut my brain off at night, I didn't want that to happen, because it was like, wow, like I have found something that's worked, that somebody understands. And so I was really mindful to eat right. I did lose weight. I probably lost 20 pounds, but it was over like a 6-8 month period of time. It came off slowly, and it was just because the Adderall, it did help me control like cravings and stuff, but in a good way. I wasn't starving myself or anything like that. So it was good. But now I've been on it for a couple of years, so it doesn't do that anymore. My hunger signals are back. And one of the side effects of Adderall is, at least for me, and my doctor told me it happens with some, other people too. Not everybody gets it. When you're on it for a while, sometimes when it wears off, your body for some reason craves sugar. And this has been a very real struggle for me, because I've been on it for a while. All of a sudden, like around 8-9 o'clock, and I've never been like a sugar person. It's been, besides soda, it's always been like popcorn and chips. I will just crave sugar. Like it's so bad. Like, it is all I can think about. And so I get hooked on like creamies and ice cream and little cupcake. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I just want to like eat and eat and eat. And because I'm not in the mindset of like with the bulimia anymore, I'm not getting rid of it. So I have put on a significant amount. Well, not significant. I've probably put on, like I said, I don't own a scale. And when I go to the doctors and they weigh me, they know my history, so they don't tell me my weight, but I can feel it in my clothes. I can see it in my face. And it's not even really about like, oh, I'm getting chubby. I think it's affecting the arthritis, because I've been reading that like sugar in your diet, like a high amount of sugar, can make arthritis pain 10 times worse. And which would make sense, because with all these sugar cravings, my arthritis is worse. They're saying I need surgery. I don't feel good. I just feel all out of sorts. I'm starting to get like arthritis in my legs, and it just, I don't feel well. I have a hard time doing yoga because of my thumbs, I can't put my hands flat. And it's just, I feel like I'm just a mess. So I actually see my med management doctor tomorrow, and I'm going to ask her if maybe it would be wise to get off the Adderall, because the Adderall still helps with everything else. I don't mean like I'm using it to manage weight, but I'm tired of the sugar cravings. And if I need to maybe get on Vyvanse or something else, I'll see what she says. Or I just need to be stronger and go to bed and not, I'm still making choices. but I need to get off sugar. And then with knowing that my mom has type 2 diabetes and that it runs in my family, I'm putting myself at a huge risk of developing it also. And I also feel like something else is going on. I don't like to get on like WebMD and try to, because then you think you have everything, but I don't know. I just feel like something's not right with my body, and I feel like going back to what I originally said, I don't feel like that doctor was listening. And when they order the standardized test, sometimes they're not looking for things like lupus or those are certain tests that you have to order separately. It came back that I didn't have like rheumatoid or anything like that, but something doesn't feel right in my body. And so I'm gonna find a new doctor and get referred to maybe a new hand specialist and see, just to get a second opinion to see, is there anything else that I can try other than the cortisone shots or going straight to surgery. And if there's not, then I'm probably going to do the cortisone shot again, but not at the same time. Like, I'm not going to do my hands at the same time, probably just my right hand, and see what happens, and talk to my med management doctor about what's going on, see if I need to switch my ADHD meds to, because they'll do that. Sometimes they'll try, something else, because there's more than Adderall, and see if that helps. And I need to start eating more grains, just a more healthy diet. Like, I will tend to grab chips, or just not the most healthy choices. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Has anybody else struggled with these kinds of things? I just feel like I've come so far with the eating disorder. I don't want to fall back into old habits or get into that mindset. And like, besides my weight, like, I think it really is affecting other things in my body. So I think cutting sugar, and I'm not going to say I'm going to cut all sugar, because the minute I say that, I'm going to set myself up for failure. But I need to cut way, way back. I need to stop eating creamies and drumsticks before I go to bed. And when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm eating like 3 or 4 in a row. I'm having one. But still, like, I think it's affecting me. And my soda addiction is no bueno. Like, and that's always been a struggle for me. I think I could brush it off before because I was young, but I'm not young anymore. I'm 46. And so drinking those sodas, I think, is not healthy. Probably not even the diet ones. Now, I might have to wean myself and go to diet. And then, because I tried to do the sparkling waters, the ones I told you guys tasted pretty good. I didn't like any of the other flavors. They were all gross. Felt like I was drinking dirt. I don't know. So these lines on that. I really need to start taking better care of myself, because I don't want to have type 2 diabetes, and I want functioning hands, and I also don't want to gain a ton of weight, because it's just not healthy for your body. Like, and the older you get, the harder it is to lose. And so it's been a long winter. I haven't walked like I normally walk, because there's just been so much black ice and the cold. And the cold, I hope my mom doesn't watch this, because she's like, you need to move. Like, the cold's making your arthritis worse. I'm like, no, it's not, Mom. It's fine. This year has been bad. I think it's definitely made it worse, but like, we can't move. So I don't like being hot. I feel like in the summer, it's bad too. Like, I swell, and the swelling on my joints, especially in my thumbs, hurts too. And then been getting, like, the last 2 summers, like, if I'm in the heat too long, even with tons of sunblock, I like get these weird rashes on my arms, and I get like come on my face and stuff. That's why I was like, that's a sign of lupus, but they won't test me for it. So I hope I don't have it. I don't want to have it, but you think that they would test for it to at least rule it out, because I do present some of the signs, and it could also make things like your arthritis worse. So I don't know. I just wanted to get on here and share that with you, because if you're struggling with any of these things, like food or your mental health, or just not feeling well, like, it's okay to admit it and to talk about it. And even if you're not seeking professional help, just talk to somebody you trust about it. And if you're on the receiving end of it and somebody's talking to you about it, don't try to fix it. Just listen. A lot of times when people are going through things like this, they just need somebody to listen. They don't need you to fix it. They don't need you to give advice or, oh, this is what I would do. Because a lot of times that makes it worse. Just listen. Just be present when they're talking to you and just offer your comfort. So I hope this was helpful to anybody. If anybody's having these kinds of problems, say a little prayer for me that I can find, a good doctor, because I was just not happy with mine. And with that being said, I'm gonna end this video so you don't have to see the mini blind lines on my face anymore. Hope everybody is gonna have a fabulous week, and I will see you guys next time. Chicken tendies.